Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Current Affairs with Astrology. This is every 2 weeks. Me and Robin Ray are communicating to you what we see in the news and with current affairs as life progresses in this earthly realm. So we're going to give everything with a reflect to astrology, and I hope you all enjoy what we've got to say. Please, very welcome to put comments and into the chat box, and do please tell your friends about us, because we're going to be doing this every 2 weeks now. I think probably Tuesdays. Is that right, Robin? I think Tuesdays.
Yes, we might make it slightly later.
We might start slightly later, but we haven't. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But we're gonna, so please tell your friends, and you can tune into us on Mars Day, Tuesday, and it will be which is very direct. We're going to be taking action on our astrology, you see. So I hope that you will all enjoy this. Right, so I'll start by doing a share screen. Time's almost coming at 7:10. The ascendant currently is in the sign of the Crab, and that means the moon is which is nice for the people, our little gathering, as a moon gathering, as it were, tonight in Virgo. And of course, that means that we may be able to apply some fresh analysis to things, like a sort of slightly critical overview. Maybe there's a feeling for that tonight, so which is good, of course. The moon will be squaring the nodes in a minute, which could almost be, in a way, of a sense of becoming aware of a possibly a new direction to go in, something like that, to understand things differently. We've got the sun now just gone halfway past its point in Scorpio, and this is so when the sun is in Scorpio, we are now in the middle of autumn. Okay, so it really is starting to cool off. I mean, the summer has now completely left us because we're halfway through autumn. Okay, so now things are really getting colder, and mulching down. The leaves are off the trees. It rains a lot, and this is very indicative of sun in Scorpio. And of course, the sky is very grey at the moment. As I said, the rain. We're really into that autumn feeling, and the ground's becoming very damp and sodden. As one would befit a watery sign like Scorpio. And the mulch here is, of course, because the Scorpio rules Mars. And so Mars is breaking things down, and Mars currently is in Aries. So when the sun's in Scorpio and the Mars is in Aries, we're getting the very interesting transit of this Mars in Aries at the moment. And one of the major features this week, of course, is that Mars goes direct, which is hugely important for all that we are attempting to achieve in our lives and move forwards with. So Mars actually goes direct on the 14th. So that'll be Saturday. Mars goes direct. It's stationing already on its 15th degree of Aries. So it's holding its place. And when a stationing planet holds its place, then it's very powered up. Okay. So it really is emitting a very strong ray at the moment, as it were. Mars is really strong because it holds that degree of the zodiac. So as we're moving through time, if you like, Mars is staying in that place and emanating its dynamics onto us. So it's a really, really good time to really start to think about how you want to move forwards in whatever it is you've been felt held back by. Because, of course, Mars has done a retrograde for months, right? And we all felt extremely held back. At first, it was incredibly frustrating, but maybe we mellow out a bit after a while because we had all the squares, Mars squaring Saturn, Mars square Pluto, Mars square Jupiter. We're going back, Mars square Jupiter going back to the end of July, and so really it's been this very slow process, but now Mars is turning to go direct again. So he's ready to start pushing his agenda, shall we say. So in your own charts, you want to be looking at this time at the signs of Aries and Scorpio, and having a look at what your natal Mars does, and so that you can get a better idea of how you can move forward in the most effective ways. And this Mars in Aries is, when it goes direct, it's going to start applying to square the behemoths, shall we call them, in Capricorn, which brings my attention, of course, to the next part of the next major transit, which, of course, is the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, and that is going exact on very soon, in fact, on basically the 12th and the 13th of November. So we're looking at today being Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, really, probably. The actual conjunction is probably Thursday.
Yeah, it is.
And the news for what it will hold will be on the Friday. So with Jupiter-Pluto, we're looking at something big, something grand, something expansive. But Jupiter's in its fall in Capricorn, right? So it has actually had a very muted effect this whole last year. It's not really being able to play its part like it would normally do, because it's been made to be pragmatic. You know, it's been made to be drawn down to an earthiness, whereas it would normally be at its happiest when it's expressing upwards, you know, because it's kind of like an upward rising energy is very Jupiter, or sort of that nature, basically. So the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is now Pluto, of course, as we know, has been in Capricorn now for 10 years, or even coming on to 12 years, since 2008. And what it's doing is it's turfing up a lot about how we're governed, authorities, structure, hierarchy. All these things have been affected by Pluto. Stuff that's been exposed that people would rather weren't exposed, and it's affecting how the power structures of the world, the usual form of things, has been very largely disrupted. So when Jupiter comes along with Pluto, then we're looking at something bigger and more disruptive, essentially. Pluto is all about transformations. It's about regeneration as well after something has died. So it's quite like Pluto is there's the god Shiva. I don't know if you see my image there, but that is Shiva, the Nataraj. That's a great symbol for showing how powerful Pluto can be, because that is the god or the deity or the energy, if you like, the frequency, or however you want to call it, the planetary dynamic that is about creating and destroying simultaneously. So the Nataraj dances that ring or dances in between the liminal space of destroying something whilst creating something anew. Lots of myths around that, like the phoenix that rises from the ashes. So there's an eternal feeling of Pluto, you know, it's always there to regenerate and renew, but first it can be eliminating. So it'll eliminate something to recreate. And actually, if you think about that in the greater system of things, and the greater what we've actually been experiencing this year with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in January, is of course we're going to have over the next 35 years, because the conjunction just starts something. It's just the planting of the seeds that will then create something completely new, because something new will be generated. And Saturn in its own sign, of course, is governance and authority and hierarchy. The Pluto is like, okay, so things don't work like they used to, right? And we saw that from January the 12th. So we're going to, when I say we, I'm talking about the human collective or humanity, is going to put something or build something or create something new in its place. A new form of governance, a new form of hierarchy and authority. And because we're going into this Aquarian phase very soon, then of course maybe it's going to be a lot more equal. You know, maybe the hierarchy will be a different thing. Maybe it will even, dare I say it, because I like to think things positively, it will be based around wisdom and experience, rather than just, you know, the democratic voting system or something. So we'll get proper governance from people who have a lot of experience and wisdom in life. That might be nice. It might be a good way of looking at it. Might be a bit too hopeful, but you never know, right? We have to, because we're going into this age of Aquarius, or this Jupiter, Saturn in Aquarius, So there is a big shift coming already. You know, that there's a lot of, the infrastructure is already very shaken around, so something new and airy is coming through, and or about to come through with the Jupiter Saturn in Aquarius. That's December the 21st. We'll save that for the next talk. But today I'm actually because I go off on tangents. Today it's Jupiter Pluto, all right, in Capricorn. That's coming up this Thursday, and it's with Pallas, an asteroid. We don't often put Pallas in there. Sometimes people just do their charts without asteroids, but I couldn't help notice that there it was, and it's exactly partile. That is to say, it is in the same minute and degree as Jupiter Pluto. Now that really is speaking something to us.
That will be on the Thursday. It will the Jupiter Pluto and Pallas Athene will be exactly 22:59 or something, is it? I don't know. I've got it on my other chart, but
yes,
it is. I think it is really important to kind of look into what Pallas means.
Yes, Pallas is is really key words to describe Pallas is creative intelligence, and it is also pattern recognition and intuition. Okay, the myth is that Pallas Athena just was born out of the head of Zeus in full armor. So if you were in full armor in the mythological times, you were ready for anything, right? Ready for anything, yeah. So and the idea of Zeus's head, I think, is very much kind of based on maybe what goes on in the mind, creative intelligence, let's call it, and that's what Pallas is, right? So what we've got here, and the news headlines today, right, is very, very interesting, because Pallas Athene in Capricorn, in a structured hierarchical place, could be seen to be the laboratory, right? And I'll show you something in a minute that I think this indicates in the headlines. And so we're going to go now to the main headlines of the day. So here we go. Here's the Daily Telegraph today in yellow. So that's a great day for humanity. It's the big announcement that Pfizer have said they've got a vaccine that's safe and ready to be deployed. Interesting that the Mercury retrograde is going direct, going back into Scorpio. Something suddenly ready, and also Mars is going direct this week, so it's ready for action, ready for jabs, which is Mars. So it's and that's it's safe apparently, folks. Which is also Venus opposite Mars, which is happening today. Venus opposite Mars would be, is it safe? It's kind of like, is it safe? Do you understand what I'm trying to say there? Because Venus is in her own sign in Libra, Mars is in Aries. Mars in Aries is like, whoa, dangerous, whoa, risky, Venus in Libra is like, it's going to be easy, it's going to be nice.
Julian, it's an opposition, and that means it needs to be weighed up.
But they're in their domiciles.
But it needs to be weighed up. It's an opposition.
It does need to be weighed up, and that's what they're saying here in the headlines. But the one that I really like was this one, because here are a couple of laboratory technicians, doctors, the biotech founders. It's a German-Turkish couple who may now see their fortune reach 3 billion. Oh, blimey.
Billion.
There we go. They're pretty happy, as you can imagine.
Well, they're never going to spend it because they never leave the lab.
Yes.
They even got married and went back to the lab.
Exactly.
7 days a week, they're in the lab.
And all that hard work, which could be seen to be Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn in Capricorn, with Pallas, which is the creative intelligence, because these guys have clearly done pattern recognition, intuition, and creative intelligence in order to create the vaccine that they needed. So the Mars square in Aries, Mars squaring that cluster of planets. Now you see in some parts of the world, large parts of the population are mumbling and grumbling about a new vaccine, and how anti-vaxxers and conspiracy theorists and all these sort of people are saying blah, 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 blah. But in another part of the world, from someone else's perspective, these are people who've really, really struggled very, very hard and worked very, very hard to actually create a cure. So they've got a massive point of achievement in their lives, right? By the sheer effort that they've put into something. So everything is from one's own perspective, you know? Why we can't really trust conspiracy theories, you know? Because you really just have to trust your, you know, evidence that you see yourself in your own life, as it were. And that is a way of progressing, if you like. So anyway, this is a very successful moment for these people. So this is a graph of the COVID cases daily in the USA, mapped out over this year. And as you can see, there's a peaks here. And then underneath, we've got the Jupiter conjunct Pluto and the orb that the planets have been in. And look how it matches the peaks of the COVID cases. So, you know, Pluto casting its power of its destructive power, its eliminating power, with Jupiter, you know, carrying that wave, if you like, of the virus. But they do match very interestingly, and I got to say, whoever put this graph together and spotted that match is brilliant, and that's exactly what we should be doing with astrology all the time. When you get the big outer planets doing stuff like this, and you can map them out accordingly to things, situations like that. That's really amazing bit of sort of correlation, if you like.
Yeah, fascinating.
So that really could be a very futuristic way of approaching astrology for people, you know, to see that kind of idea, you know. So graphing it out across orb and time. So distance between the two planets, the time taken, and then and match that to like a sort of news cycle, I guess, or something like that. Maybe a story or a news cycle would be quite interesting. So so that's quite an interesting little graph. And now I'll go back to I think I'll have a quick look at the papers again. I saw something else that I quite liked. What was that? We've just had Sun trine Neptune. I mean, that was like yesterday, today even. It was like really, it was like today actually, early this morning. The Sun in Scorpio trined Neptune retrograde in Pisces. So, and what should we find here? But this is quite interesting. Do we, a little small headlines sometimes at the bottom of the page of, you know, often say quite a lot, you know, do we need public service TV? You know that when the BBC was founded, it had about 4 planets in Pisces, including, I think it was 4 planets in Pisces. And it was, I think Neptune was in Virgo, opposite where it is now. And I think, I'm pretty certain it was. So that's quite interesting to see that, you know, like Sun Neptune, because that's very sort of, if you like, it is a kind of, Sun Neptune is very imaginary, very visual, televisual. Biden makes COVID response first priority. Well, the first priority, of course, would be Mars going direct, you know. That would be like, right, this is what's front and forward above everything else, right? Mars goes direct, and you've got President-elect saying, this is what we're going to do. Of course, Joe Biden's got 4 planets in Scorpio, right? So he really reacts to Mars transits, right? So Mars stationing, he's got something to kind of literally say, what should we say, get his teeth into, you know, as soon as he can get up and going now, and he can already take the headlines, right? To say, yes, we're working on this, we're working on that, we're going to have this, we're going to have that, and that keeps him right up in the news before even the inauguration. So that Mars in Aries he's going to be really taking a lot of activating himself with that, with how he plans to push forwards and move forwards and essentially take back control, you know, which is what, let's say, what he needs to do. Multivitamin benefits may be psychological. Well, that's definitely Sun trine Neptune, right, which was early this morning. So as people bought their papers and got them delivered, started reading them, Sun Neptune was going exact, the trine. Multivitamin benefits may be psychological, yeah. So it's like, yeah, like the placebo or something like that, that kind of effect, Neptunian. And then I can't quite completely read that, but I don't quite sure who Kane is. It's a sport headline. So it looks like Marcus Rashford's getting some support from other sports people.
Harry Kane is a footballer.
Support to keep kids active. Yeah? Does anybody see that? Yeah.
What was that?
So this, it looks like what the footballers are doing. And this is going to be a very interesting movement because, of course, again, Mars going direct in Aries is sports, right? And it's footballers. And it's like, Rashford's done these amazing things. He's a Scorpio. So he's been completely fired up to do stuff. And maybe other Mars people are also going to start stepping in, taking action to help rebalance the imbalances in society, shall we say.
Maybe the footballers will start sharing some of their money with the,
I think we mentioned that last time, and I believe that could be a thing,
I think so.
Community bases, but it's all to do with the football teams, because that's actually the essence of the community.
I think Marcus Rashford is starting a whole huge movement because he's got more and more things coming up in his chart. So I think he's taken it now from children being fed in school holidays. It's gone into a whole nother level now. They've got all sorts of different charities on board. And I think that the other football organisations might come on board doing similar things.
Yes, absolutely.
That would be amazing.
And then this is quite good. I like this headline, right? If this isn't Mars about to square Saturn again, right? Or Mars square Pluto, and how to keep a lid on the wild excitement, right? Mars stations at 15 degrees, and someone writes an analysis piece, how to keep a lid on wild excitement. Invoke a penalty shootout. That is so Mars, right? I mean, it just is, So, which is also interesting. And then what else have we got? That's probably, FT is always quite interesting. Yeah, well, we've got at the moment, Venus is in Libra, okay? And Venus, I do believe, rules the color green, I think. I'm pretty certain it does, because it also rules Taurus. And so Sunak, the Chancellor, therefore to do very Venusian place, the Chancellor, because it's all about values and worth and, and money. Sunak plants, that's a Venus word. Green gilts, that's Venus in Libra, in a way, at the center of the post-Brexit vision for financial services. Interesting.
So what are green gilts? What are they?
Well, I'd have to really try. I haven't got a magnification on this, so I can't actually read it properly.
Okay.
But I can only look at the headline, but it says something like Rishi Sunak has set out his plans, has set out his post-Brexit vision for the City of London, funding a new chapter for financial services.
Green investment, said Julia.
Green.
So they're encouraging people to put money into anything that's green, probably.
Yeah.
By doing that, you'll probably get more interest on your money.
Absolutely, and that would be a very good post-Brexit thing, of course.
Yeah,
so if
very
they
interesting.
Go green, and this is also actually, funnily enough, part of the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, because if you remember the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, the last one that happened. And I just want to go back to that graph again, of course. But the last one that happened in, I think it was June, crashed the price of oil overnight, which means that the old infrastructure, the old energy structure built, the financial security, safety structure built around oil, crashed overnight. Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. That's really, that was really surprising. And so now we've got a headline saying, yeah, we're going to have some big changes now, So Jupiter-Pluto is kind of suggesting that we could be really looking at a new sort of way of of building a different economy, you know, because it's still very Capricorn, you know, organized, controlled, governed. And Jupiter is a money planet in its own way, as is Pluto, very, very much. So when they're in an Earth sign, again, we're looking at this idea of something that would be an Earth, more of a different type of, you know, restructuring, exactly as I talked about earlier with the Pluto.
Julian?
Yes.
Can I ask you do you remember that conversation we had today, and you said about the air signs and how they're all, you know, what they look like and how it's all about equality? You know,
Yes.
like the Gemini,
Yes.
Aquarius,
Yes, Robin,
and
yes,
Libra
absolutely. I'll do that
signs.
now.
I think that's something really worth just, you know, just dipping into quickly, and then I'll take over if you like.
All right, thank you. Something I noticed today, or I've considered before, you know, but I was chatting to Robin earlier today, was that how this idea of the air signs, okay? So we're looking at Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra here, and we're going into that the new cycle, the new air element cycle, the airy trigon, for the next 200 years, and it's about the change of infrastructure. Earth, we've been in Earth for 200 years. You know, from 1760 was the first Earth conjunction, and the last one was the year 2000. You know, it's been a very long journey in Earth, and Earth is an element that is downwards. Yeah, it's gravitas. It's weighty. It's heavy. It goes as far down as it can in its groundedness to find a solid base or a foundation. So therefore, Jupiter, Saturn meeting in Earth signs for 100 and, as I said, 160, 200 years, then we've had a society that has been very grounded. You know, it's been about manifestation, productivity, you know, materialism, consumerism, capitalism. All these things are very earthy based concepts.
Making money out of the earth, like
exactly.
oil.
Exactly. Out of products. That's also turned into shops that had high streets. And the idea of consumer retail has all grown out of
land, property, oil, everything that comes out of the earth, diamonds, everything that comes from the earth.
Yes.
In the air world, in the new era that we're going into, I don't think those things in 100 years will have any value.
Yeah. And by moving into this air cycle, Jupiter, Saturn are now having a lift of element quality. So it's because air rises upwards with fire. Air and fire rise up. So we're detaching ourselves from the earth, from that earthiness. We're moving upwards into air. So once Jupiter, Saturn meet in Aquarius, then we're having this new air lift, if you like. It's an air rising. And it's a kind of literally like a sort of, let's call it trigon rising or new age rising, or, you know, it is literally a rising, a kind of like a movement going upwards. So technically speaking, we should be all a lot happier for a start, you know, because we can start talking to each other in ways that are far more intellectually based and far more equal. And what I thought when I looked at the symbols, when I think of looking at the symbols, because the symbols actually do hold quite some interesting insights, you know. Just but what are the symbols? You know, we had to really think the origins of the symbols. You know, each of them's like a kind of, you know, what they have meanings. And so Aquarius is 2 bars. You know, looking not too dissimilar to an equal sign, right? Gemini is 2 bars, looking not too dissimilar to an equal sign. Libra is 2 bars, looking not too dissimilar to an equal sign. Put it together, and you have, when you think about mind, intelligence, conversation, you know, communication, reasoning ability, logic, you have to have an equal to talk to communicate with. Because, you know, people have to be equal to understand each other properly, you know. You have to have, it's not about comparing against others anymore. It's going to be about seeing
it's not going to be about the rich and poor.
Say again, Robin.
It won't be about the rich and poor.
Yeah. It's not about comparing. Keeping up with the Joneses is a finishing concept. You know, we're done with that. You know, And so comparing oneself to others, which causes a lot of anxiety in people, and it starts at an early age, right back, in school days and things, and then it becomes something that people do their whole lives. Oh, so and so's got this, and now I've got to do that, and it's not really something that makes one happy. There's no happiness in comparing yourself to others. But if you can see yourself as an equal to others, and if Jupiter, Saturn are going to be playing out, Jupiter and Saturn are the career planets, are the structural, the economic and social planets. If we can see those playing out in a form of equality, then everything's going to start to shift and change. We might, we're going through this really interesting phase where communication is the big thing, but there's also this idea of leveling. So when Boris Johnson used that phrase, the level playing field, it's a really interesting phrase he used, because actually we're kind of going to be going towards, it might not happen for quite a while, because we've got the old infrastructure really does have to sort of fade out, as it were, as the new infrastructure takes over. And it's not happened yet. We haven't actually had the conjunction yet. So people are still actually thinking materialistic, but it's only in the very final parts of that consciousness. People still think materialistic, consumeristically, profit making. It's still, people are still thinking like that. The consciousness will only change when the conjunction has happened. So December the 21st is a massive turning point in consciousness, and that actually means that everybody on the planet, no one is exempt from the new consciousness, right? So even the billionaires, right? The people that everyone goes, oh God, I wish I had a bit of theirs, and all that. The billionaires are going to have a new consciousness, right? Everything changes, okay? So when it comes to trying to rebalance the society, and let's face it, to save the sustainability of planet Earth, which is our home, right? We've got to save that, really. That's actually the focus, because the virus has taught us that the old system doesn't work like it used to anymore. So we have to change the system. And all the things from 1980 to the year 2000, of course, all the young people really felt that Jupiter, Saturn in Libra, they were all going, yeah, let's have some change the system. Hey, and there was lots of counterculture and alternative culture, and it was in all the music, the rebel factor, there was a lot of that going on because people knew they had to relate to each other in a new way. From the year 2000, we slipped back into materialism, consumerism, and profit making. And we've just had to go through 20 years of that, right? But now it's done, right? So I think there's going to be quite a similar feeling to 1980 to 2000 coming up, right? But this time, that kind of similar feeling is going to hold, right, for the rest of our lives. So it's quite interesting, it's something to celebrate, actually. And what we've got is this new tech. It's tech. Tech is the new thing. There's no point in being a Luddite, right, about the past. I used to be a Luddite. I can't bear it. The world's changing. I don't know if I like it. But actually, if you think about it, this is our evolution. It is the way we're going, and we've had to leave. We have to integrate the air for going from Earth consciousness to air consciousness. We had to integrate and take part in and be involved in the material consumerism of airy things, which is why when the internet started before the year 2000, the internet was very free. It was very like, yeah, everybody, here's this fantastic communication tool. Right? Everyone can do it. Fantastic. But then money started to get involved because after the year 2000, Jupiter, Saturn in Taurus, and it was like the dot-com bubble, right? It was like, oh my God, everybody make money. And then mobile phones started making money and everything changed. So we've all been having to work through, if you like, or experience the material consumeristic drive to airy concepts. So mobile phones and the internet have all been costed and valued and made into worth-based, money-oriented, profit-making things. I'm not saying that's going to stop, because it's not, because it's going to take a long time for any kind of, for what I have no idea what's around the corner, really. but I have a lot of hope that there's going to be this equality. Okay. And that might take 20 years to work out. Then it goes, then I think that in 2040, I think it's in Gemini, or no, 2040 is back in Libra again, actually, I think, or it might be Gemini. Actually, it's in Libra again, right? In 2040. And so, you know, it's about then, you know, finding the balance. So new concepts are coming in for 20 years, then it's about finding the balance. And then it's about going into Gemini. And then it goes back into Aquarius, then Gemini, I think. But the point being here is what I'm trying to say there is that it's airy all the way in from here, you know, and it's the use of communications and how we build our world around that, you know, having taken 200 years of really amazing, you know, let's face it, it's all been amazing, you know, really amazing earthy concept, which brought us health systems, it brought us, you know, industrial revolution, massive changes in technology.
Jules, I just want to pick your brains on this one. What do you think about this? When Jupiter-Pluto made its first conjunction,
yeah,
earlier in the year, in April, EasyJet grounded all their stuff.
Absolutely.
And when it made its second conjunction, there was a big fallout with the travel industry. And I'm just wondering if there's going to be another fallout this week with the final Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. What do you think?
Thank you. And I think we'll probably get, hang on. There they are. Look, they're all doing it at the same time. Look at that. That's so exact, isn't it?
How extraordinary is that?
Extraordinary, isn't it? Can everybody see that? Look, 2251, 2251, all three together.
So
when that actually happens, I'm just.
How do you think Pallas Athene is playing into that?
Yeah.
Because Pallas Athene, or Athena, was Jupiter's daughter.
Yeah.
I Googled this and it said goddess of warfare, wisdom, skill, and strategy.
Right.
Brilliant lawyer who lives in the middle of us, the military analyst. It defines how our brain functions, our critical thinking, our means of planning a strategy. So how would you link that to the Pluto-Jupiter?
Well, I'd say this is actually the chart for it, Robin.
I know.
It's going to be at 7:37 p.m. in the UK, right? That's the actual minute that Jupiter joins that, goes to 51 minutes. So it's in the 7th house of the chart. So it's about relating to others, or it's about partnerships. It's the moon with Venus, both of them applying to square Jupiter, Pallas, and Pluto. There's an interesting, the sun is still trine Neptune.
Yeah, and don't forget, guys, I mean, you've got moons, and when you've got moon squaring something, and it's coming up to it rather than past it, the moon is coming up to that square. So that is a last quarter square. So that is the birthing or the gestation period for a new period of time or a new way of doing whatever that's about. So maybe there's a new way of involve, you know, maybe as far as the travel industry is concerned, maybe it's a new period of time for restructuring the way the travel industries run.
Yeah.
I mean, I know.
Robin, you take over now, okay? I'll stop sharing my screen and you take over. How about that?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Very good. Can you see that? Can you see that, Robin?
Yes.
All right, so this is the 5:10, 4th of July, 1776.
Yeah.
And this is the lunar eclipse on the 30th of November in Philadelphia.
So they've got all this argy-bargy going on in America about, you know, the presidency at the moment. And I thought it was quite interesting that when I put up the USA chart, can you make that chart bigger or not?
No.
Okay. So when I put that chart up, I saw that the full moon was exactly conjunct the Uranus.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Uranus is at 8:55. Now, apparently, when the Civil War started on the 12th of April, 1861, the Mars was at 6 of Gemini, and the Uranus, transiting Mars was 6 Gemini, and transiting Uranus was 9 Gemini. So this is a very, this is a very hypersensitive point in the US chart, and because it's a lunar eclipse, if you think about a full moon, so a lunar eclipse is like a full moon, but it's got something in the middle. It's got the Earth in the middle, and it's blocking the light. It's creating a blockage. So you've got the full moon going across that Uranus and across the ascendant descendant of the Sibley chart, but there's some sort of blockage. There's something stopping things from moving in one way or another. And remember that a lunar aspect of any kind is all about everything becoming clear and a make or break situation. However, if it's an eclipse, things are not completely clear. There's something that's hidden that we may never know. We may never know. I mean,
Robin, Donald Trump's sun is at 22 Gemini.
Yes, I know, but we're not looking at Trump. We're looking at the
He could be blocking it.
He could be. Yes, he could. However, that blockage will be cleared at some stage. But at this point in time, on the 30th of November, there's going to be a make or break situation. And there may well be something that we might never ever find out about, because with lunar eclipses, there's something quite often that's hidden or hidden from view, if you like. Because if you think of an eclipse, it kind of blocks the light in some way. So if you think of a full moon, everything's clear and you can make a decision to go one way or the other. But with a lunar eclipse, there's a blockage. But that's not helpful in as much as it's not helpful to be able to resolve that situation. So I think we have to wait until we have the solar eclipse. So if you, so it's so annoying, this chart situation. So if you put up Donald Trump's chart, have you got his details, Julian?
Yep.
If you put up Donald Trump's chart, and then we put up the solar eclipse.
And the same lunar eclipse, right? Or the solar eclipse.
Yeah, the solar eclipse on no, take those charts down and put Donald Trump.
So you want the 14th of December solar eclipse?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Yep. And then you want two wheels with Donald Trump in the middle and solar eclipse on the outside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and you can't make that any bigger, that screen?
No.
Okay, all right. So we obviously, we've got to do a lot of practicing of all this, haven't we? Because we're not great at it. Anyway, the thing is, the solar eclipse is actually on Donald Trump's, It's on his moon and his south node. Now, a solar eclipse, you don't really know which way things are going to go either, because solar eclipse is very powerful, but it's a new start, it's a new beginning. And I think the fact that Donald Trump has got that solar eclipse on his south node, I think it's a new beginning, and he has no choice but to let go of the situation he's in, because he's got a nodal return. And when you have a nodal return, it's like a Saturn return, a nodal return. So let's say you had a Saturn return when you were 29 and you got married. And let's say you have a Saturn return 29 years later and you got divorced. A nodal return is a bit like that. It's a bit like you've had that 19-year period, and whatever you've done with it, you get the results of that at the following 19-year period. It's a repetition, but it's a moving on from repetition. So the very fact that he's already president, that nodal return is saying you're already president, but now you're going to be moving on. Now, Kamala Harris has got exactly the same solar eclipse, and she's got a nodal return as well. But she is in a position where she is moving on. Her nodes are on her ascendant and descendant, and so she is going to be moving on. However, Donald Trump is not going to be staying. He is going to be moving on as well, because he's having a nodal return, and I think a lot of astrologers simply don't understand how the nodes work. So a nodal return is like a Saturn return. You know, it's at the next stage. You're moving on to the next stage. It's not a repetition. It's a continuation and a moving on period. So he will be moving on, and Kamala Harris, who's got exactly the same nodal return, hers is on her 7th house cusp. So she'll be moving on, and she's becoming a partner because it's on her 7th house cusp. So I just thought it was important to try and explain how these eclipses work, because people in the astrological, I'm quite shocked really out there in the astrological world how few people seem to understand how the nodes work and how the eclipses work. So without looking at any other transits, without looking at any progressions, without looking at anything really, if you understand how the nodes work and how the eclipses work, you can see what the story is. So
But the solar eclipse is exactly opposite his sun, his natal sun.
yes, that's right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's conjunct his south node, and the south node is about letting go. So it's a release, a letting go. So there's no way that this presidency will continue. And the other thing that I thought was really interesting when I first decided to look at the charts, because I don't really know much about American politics. I'm not particularly interested in any of these things. It's just that it happens to be the talk of the moment. So beginning of October, I was thinking about the whole situation with the American election. And I was aware, and I wrote on my blog, which you can go back to on my website, which is beginning of October. I wrote and said so many conjunctions like Saturn-Pluto, Pluto-Jupiter, Saturn-Jupiter, Saturn-Mars, Jupiter-Mars. I mean, endless conjunctions through the whole of 2020. Now, conjunctions are like new moons. They're beginnings. Everything all year long has screamed, this is the beginning, this is the beginning of something. As astrologers, it's up to us to work out beginning of what. But it's the beginning. And I just thought, if it's a beginning, and Trump and Biden come from the old school, the old world, the old way of doing things, then why on earth would either of them be elected in this new age as president? And I looked at both their charts, and they both had for and against going for them. I mean, some had good, some had bad. And it was quite difficult weighing it up and trying to decide until I did all their eclipses, eclipse cycles and what have you. And then it was very clear that it was going to be Biden. However, if you just think about the fact that all these planets are being conjuncting, so they're all new moons and new beginnings. And then I looked at Kamala Harris's chart, and I realized that the reason that Biden is going to get in is because he's the precursor to Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris is going to bring in a new era, a new world, a new beginning. And, you know, I think within 2 years of him being president, that she will be taking over. She'll be taking over as the president of the USA. She has a chart which indicates, and we haven't got time to go through it all tonight, but she has a chart that indicates that she's here on a mission, just the same as Ruth Bader Ginsburg was. Her chart's very similar. Ruth Bader Ginsburg spent her entire life fighting for the rights of women. And this is what Kamala Harris is going to do as well. It's almost like Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died and Kamala Harris has come in her place. So, you know, I don't know if any of you saw her speech the other night, but I was very moved by her speech. And I thought to myself, you know, this is a new era. This is why Biden is going to be president now, because it's giving Kamala Harris that opportunity, that rite of passage, if you like. I think you'll find that I feel that there's going to be a lot more the same as, you know, in the Scandinavian countries and New Zealand, etc. There's a lot more women coming to the fore in this new age that we're going into now. So yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of charts there to talk about, but I don't know how we're doing for time, and I'm wondering if we should,
Robin, can I just say something that Donald Trump, when he was born at the full moon.
Yes, that's right. He was born on an eclipse.
So all sort of coming together, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the interesting thing is that his prenatal eclipse is at 8 Gemini, and that is going to be picked up on the 30th of November. And that's a lunar eclipse on the 30th of November. And you know, he's kind of making allegations that the voting has been rigged and all of that sort of thing. And the fact that there's going to be a lunar eclipse on that point, on the 30th of November, there could be some truth in that. There could well be some truth in that. However, I don't think it's going to come to light. I don't think so, because it's an eclipse. And with an eclipse, it takes 9 months for something to come to light. So I don't think it'll come to light. And I think he will leave on the 14th of December. But I think it's just very interesting because you can look at all the transits, and he's got some difficult transits coming up. I mean, he's got Pluto coming up to he's had it opposing his Saturn at the minute. He's got it coming up to oppose Venus. So, you know, I don't think things are looking great as far as his presidency is concerned. So I'd put 50 quid on a bet to say that he's going to be leaving by the 14th of December. And I doubt, when I look at the inauguration chart, I doubt very much whether he'll be handing over. I think that he'll pack his bags and skedaddle somehow. I don't think he'll be around. Anyhow, I know his sons are trying to talk him into, you know, leave now and then, you know, come back in 2024, but he won't come back in. And the reason he won't is because we are going into this new age and everything's going to be different. And all these, you know, the Capricorn era, and I consider Trump and Biden and all of these older generation, they're all, you know, they're represented by Capricorn. They're not represented by Aquarius. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if Boris Johnson stands down, probably by next spring, and we'll probably have Rishi Sunak as our Prime Minister. So everything in the next few months is going to change very dramatically. So
yeah.
Anyway.
I always think it's very interesting. I think Christine Stapely pointed it out just earlier, actually. I just might quickly add here that Donald Trump's sun and North Node are exactly on America's Mars. And of course, Mars is the guns and the weapons, and America has a massive problem with its guns and weapons.
Yeah.
And Mars in Gemini it would be holding the weapons, you know, the weapon holders, Mars in Gemini. And and Donald Trump really appeals to them, you know. They are the flag wavers as well, you know.
Absolutely. And you know, I was shocked when I was watching CNN the other day, and they'd all come out with all they not only had their big revolvers, but they had all their like gear on with all their bullets and all their bullet vests and their machine guns, and like there were like literally hundreds of them. And I just thought, this is insane. This is in the middle of, you know, this is
worth noting, Robin, if I just might say, that solar eclipse opposite on the 14th of December is the new moon with Mercury. Yeah, it's all opposite that Mars placement in the American chart. And it could be that I did read somewhere or heard somewhere on the news, you know, Donald Trump was planning to continue to have rallies, right, where he's going to, you know, get them all worked up, get a lot of people worked up. So he might still do that, you know, in that Marsy kind of way.
The trouble is, you see, you can't do anything like that unless the press are going to be cooperative, and all the press have turned their backs on him. Even Fox News has they won't publish any of his stuff. He tried to call a press meeting and they wouldn't turn up for the press meeting.
Right.
So unless the press cooperate and say, yes, this is what we're doing and where we're going, that won't happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's interesting. And it's in so the new moon eclipse in his 4th house, right? It could be that he does actually end up going traveling, you know. He might.
Well, he might. I think he could well end up going abroad, because I think he's got a lot of lawsuits against him. So he might decide to skedaddle.
It's interesting that the Uranus, transiting Uranus at 7 degrees of Taurus, right, is semi-squaring his sun at the moment, right? That's an exact semi-square, right?
And it's conjunct Melania's sun.
And it's in the 9th house, right? So the transiting Uranus is in the 9th house. Yeah. And he might actually do like the surprise vanishing trick, you know?
Well, Melania has got a Sun-Saturn conjunction at 7 and 10, I think, of Taurus. So she had the full moon on the 31st on that.
Yeah.
Point, and she's got the Uranus sitting there. So yeah, I think it was a bit of a shock. They've all had a bit of a shock. But yeah, I think that's why Biden's going to be in. He's got all that Scorpio, so he's going to have a really, really tough time, because he's going to have Saturn and Uranus forming a T-square with all those Scorpio planets for the next 2.5 years.
Yes.
He's got a big battle on his hands.
Biden. Have you got Biden's chart quickly, actually?
Yeah, I have.
Could you just quickly let me have that?
If I can see it. Biden, hang on. If I can get it up. I'll give you the details. 20th of November, 42.
Yep.
8:30 EWT. 8:30 a.m. EWT plus 4 hours. Scranton.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Sagittarius ascendant, of course, so he's got the new beginning with the solar eclipse in his first house with Mercury there.
Yeah.
On his south node. So it's about re-establishing himself in the presidential, kind of in the White House again, really, isn't it? You know, it's that solar eclipse on the south node. He's been there before, as it were. Maybe not actually in
his south node's at 0 Pisces.
Right. So yeah, that's interesting. He's got all those planets in Scorp. I mean, that's someone who has a lot of personal power, isn't it? You know.
Well, again, he's on a mission. He's on a mission, and he's obviously quite old now. And I don't think he appears to be as fit as he's trying to make out. And I think that, you know, the amount of work and effort and energy required for this job will probably finish him off, frankly. But he's on a mission and he's come here to do whatever he's come to do. And I think he will work tirelessly to achieve what he's decided he wants to achieve during his presidency. But I think halfway through the presidency, Kamala Harris will take over.
And Uranus in Taurus now, yeah, opposing all that over the next, starting in a few months with the opposition to Mars.
And Saturn. You see, now Saturn and Jupiter are going to be squaring his moon on the 21st of December.
Isn't that interesting how his moon is exactly opposite Boris Johnson's?
Yeah.
Because Boris Johnson's got the 0 Scorpio moon as well.
Yeah.
That's amazing, actually. I never, that is actually quite amazing.
Boris Johnson only phoned him up today. I think Boris Johnson only phoned him up to congratulate him today. I think he's been hedging his bets to wait and see what was going to happen with Trump.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
But
I'd like to look at next time around, Robin, we've got to look at the Irish Union. We've got to look at the 1801 chart and look at any charts for Ireland Republic, right? Because I'd be really interested to look at those, because I wonder whether we're going to get, whether the whole result of Brexit is in fact the Irish unification, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, well, maybe Biden's just coming in at this point so that something is going to be resolved as far as the Irish situation is concerned.
Very difficult to know.
Ireland chart. Is there an Ireland chart or anything like that?
I don't have it at the minute. I'd have to find it. Anyway, is there anything anyone else wants to bring up tonight?
Robin, do you have Kamala Harris's chart?
Yes, I do. Yeah. She's got an amazing chart. Let me just see if I can bring it up. Jules, here's the info. We'll have to try and do this better.
I might have her chart actually already.
I've got it if you haven't. 20th of October 64.
I have a feeling I recorded it the other day. Yeah, I have. There it is.
Okay.
2128 in Oakland, California. Yeah?
Yeah, that's her. Yeah.
So, of course,
she's got the solar
exactly on her descendant.
She's got the nodal. She's kind of taking over from Trump. She's got the same nodes within a couple of degrees, and her progressed sun is exactly at 24 Sag at the moment, and she's got very interesting chart.
Wow.
And everything links to everything. Do you see that? It's like a star, isn't it?
It's amazing.
It's like a star. It's a beautiful chart. And when I looked at her chart, the first time I looked at it, I realized that she's going to have an eclipse on her moon in 2023. And she's going to have a full moon eclipse. Maybe it's not an eclipse, maybe it's just a full moon, but 18 months later. And I thought that's when she's really going to come into her power.
Mm.
And she's got Saturn return at the same time. And all her progressions are all lining up with her angles and what have you as well. So she's got very striking chart. And it was because of her chart that I then went back and looked at Biden's chart, because I just thought, you know, she's going to go somewhere. And his job really is introducing her to the world. So,
I just wanted to take the palace out the chart so I can see the star a bit more, that shape, because it looks amazing. With palace in there, it makes a bit too much of a T-square going on.
Yeah.
A minute.
Mind you, she isn't a lawyer and a strategist, so palace is probably very appropriate. True. It's probably appropriate for her.
You're right, actually, it probably is. Very much so, in fact. But yeah, look at that. Isn't that, it's an amazing chart, isn't it?
Mm.
And that really is quite excellent. Yeah.
I mean, it's a kite, but then it's got all the extra bits on it. So it's a lovely chart. I mean, you could spend a whole evening looking at that chart. Maybe we'll do that one evening. We'll just look at her chart with all her transits, progressions, and what's going to be going on over the next few years. And then maybe one evening we can just do Biden and all the different transits and eclipses. I think he's got something like 10 eclipse cycles over the next 3 years. I mean, that is just extraordinary. Very, very, very rare.
You know what about Joe Biden, though? It might be, with all those planets in Scorpio, his real agenda might have been hidden for years, you know? He might have done that whole political thing for years, planning to actually do some sort of like a form of socialist kind of movement in America, you know, because he could have hidden that part of himself away in the Democrat Party. He became vice president for the first black president in America, and now he's president for the first black woman vice president. It's
apparently he's going to have
a kind of equality agenda, if you like, you know.
I think he's going to have a lot of women in his cabinet.
I bet he is, and it could be that all that Scorpio. He's held on for a long time to fight through all the what do you want to call it? You know, like the red tape of politics, or that difficult situation that politics. You know, he's been there, and people really like him because he was always, you know, he's towed the line, if you like, you know. But maybe now he's finally got that top job, right? And he can actually really make some changes, you know?
And the thing about a Scorpio, there's two types of Scorpio, as we know. But, you know, the thing about a Scorpio is they never give up. They'll never, if they have got a dream, if they've got whatever it takes till they drop dead, they'll just keep going to you know, to bring their dream to fruition. So I think that's his agenda, really. He's got a plan, and let's hope it works, because I think if you look at the American chart and you look at what he's got to go through over the next 3 or 4 years, I think he's in for a really rough ride. A big battle. Maybe he's got the guts to stick it out, you know?
Yeah, at least to try and put into place the things that he's been wanting to do, as you said, you know? It could be that Saturn in Gemini never really says what it wants to say, you know?
Maybe, yeah. Especially as it's retrograde, isn't it?
Well, yeah. But, yeah. Saturn to Pluto, yeah, good aspect, making a sextile. Maybe, you know, yeah. And Kamala's Venus and Pluto are on his midheaven.
I think the links between their charts is quite powerful.
Hmm.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah. Right. So, well, that was a really interesting session.
Yeah, is anything that anyone particularly wants to say tonight? Because we're going to close in a minute.